Hello, welcome to my channel and going live. I haven't gone live in so long. I just wanted to try to address a couple points that I think groups of people that get fooled a lot in politics, especially, and this is not only in America, but it's especially with the internet. We're starting to learn that this is more and more all over the world, and especially Western countries, I guess you'd say. But two groups of people that I've seen in my own lifetime. I'm 50. That I've seen go flip flop between both sides of the political spectrum, or all sides of the political spectrum, are people involved in family court. And family court is one of the most hellish places that you don't know about that exists in your own town. It can be anywhere uh, in England, or you can go onto various social media and follow parental alienation groups. Often these parental alienation groups are people who have been in or are involved in family court. And April is actually a awareness month for the earth, but also for parental alienation and child abuse. So parental alienation is what we'd like to say equals child abuse. There's a lot of still technicalities to some doctors. It's almost like global warming. There's people who want to admit to it, and there's people who don't want to admit to it. And then you dive deeper into the issue and you find out, well, there's reasons. There's like really, and they're very selfish reasons sometimes why people don't believe in global warming, why people don't believe in parental alienation. It comes down to really selfish stuff, and guilty stuff. So parental alienation is involved in family court in ways that one parent is and their family is deemed more worthy to spend time with children or a child than the other parent. And this can really come down to sex, the sex of the person, whether they're female, male, how much money they have, excuse me, and other maybe factors that are involved. But myself, I was involved for 12 years, and it was a really horrible experience in Detroit. And Detroit is amongst the country, like a world, I mean, a country leading, maybe even the world too, but leading in creating the most single women, single mothers. That it's almost like a business. It made national news out of my court while we were involved in family court, that one of the mothers, uh, who had like three children that she was collecting money on, they wouldn't let the father spend any time with these kids. She had two of those kids in a freezer for years in Detroit, and she was just collecting on the checks. Neighbors had been, wondering what happened to the kids. The father, was alienated to the point where he, you know, wasn't involved. And yeah, is a reason why this was created a long time ago. There was an issue with fathers going from town to town. The salesman, hey girly girl, like from Music Man, just going around and being irresponsible. But a lot of stuff has a good intention behind it. So when it comes to family court, it's a business now. And even you can find a really great quote by Judge Judy. And she says that family court is a collection of political outcasts, failure, political failures, lawyer failures, predators. And it's true. I mean, you can go from state to state, and And anyone who's been involved in this place will tell you that this is not fun. And not that it should be, but it's just, they even call themselves the friend of the court. It's such a misrepresentation. And how do I feel that these people, this group of people, these voters, are ignored? I feel like, and I've watched it over the years, um, and being there and meeting some of the people, and especially being online and listening to the stories, but um, the family court just distorts the whole thing into money. And when it comes down to it, you're going in and you're seeing these judges. It's all about how much money you have. I'm sure there are some wealthy parents out there who have been dissed by the family court, but these people will often, cling to whatever political candidate seems to offer them a way out of this hell. Like witnessed so many people, and they'd share pictures of Trump and whatnot on family court Facebook pages and stuff, and like, Trump is going to save our kids. And this was years ago, and it just hasn't happened. The family courts haven't changed. There are a lot of people who think that are involved. There are massive amounts of voters in family court. They they look at the people who are running for political offices, and they wonder who is going to help us. You know, who is going to save, quote unquote, literally save our kids. And if you've ever been involved in parental alienation, it's horrible. Even it can involve your own family, your parents, your grandparents, your extended family. All of a sudden, you're alienated from them as well because of everything involved in the family court setting and dragging out divorce. I was in there for 12 years. And then 2 years later, my dad died of cancer. And now, 2 years later, almost 2 years to the day, his birthday was actually yesterday, the 31st. He would have been 70. He's, you know, he just said that. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted here because it's just tough thinking about it. But, we all thought that things would get better, and they never did. So, family court really has no answers for healing family issues. It's all about the money. They make tons of money. These lawyers make that you have to get. These lawyers make $250 to $500 an hour. You're a loser if you're paying 250 or under. I mean, imagine that as a worker yourself. Making $250 an hour would be, a miracle, for any average person out there. These people, that's a basic start, and that isn't even guaranteeing that you're going to get good work. You got to wait for these people to contact you. Imagine that, hiring a contractor, you put down $5,000 to try and do something to spend time with your own kids. This is one of the most important things that there is. And they're like, okay, once they seduce you and you get that money, they get that money from you, you sign the contract, boom, you almost 9 times out of 10, you don't hear from them again for a while. They'll leave you hanging. You got to call, email. Eventually, they might even get upset with you for contacting them. They charge you for emails, looking at an email. They break everything down to the minutes, these lawyers. And all the judges are lawyers. So all the judges that you're talking to, the one that I had to start off was the worst in Detroit. He was the one that taught everybody. His name was Arthur Lombard. And he died of cancer a few years into our 12 years. This guy ripped me apart. Even his own court appointed doctor, Dr. Bowe, he sided with me. I still have all the paperwork and everything. The extensive 6 weeks he spent with myself and other people involved. And he sided with me, and this judge would not, and the following judges would not even pay attention to this. And we paid thousands of dollars for that doctor's review. all of us involved. So it just doesn't really make sense. And I could go on and on about things that happen. Like I said, this guy, Arthur Lombard, he taught everybody. He was the dean of various lawyer schools in Detroit. I worked for the Detroit Symphony for a couple of years, and I found out over time that he was involved in the symphony, and he's actually an East Coaster, and he would organize a big concert every year and everything. And I'm like, I'm sure he would go to the DSO. I probably even called him back in the day, trying to get him to buy a subscription to the DSO. But anyway, I digress. Um, One of the other judges, I actually showed up in this very jacket I'm wearing right now, and it was later in the front of the court experience. But I just, I started off going to court getting all dressed. Like, I mean, it's just a meat market in these courts. The lawyers get dressed like it's just intense, and so by the end of my experience, the last third of it, I was just, like this, and COVID was starting to get in, so we started doing stuff online. You'd have to go in and go through all this rigmarole. But the judge ripped me apart again. They just verbally, before they even heard our arguments, you pay thousands of dollars to get to this point. So I could go on and on, but this group of voters is very, very, very frustrated. The family court people, and they are predatory, being preyed upon by the legal system. All the lawyers, there has to be regulation in this country to change it. There has to be regulation on lawyers. They get paid way too much. There has to be regulation on judges. They get paid way, way too much in this country. They have too much control. So this group of people who are victimized by these courts, they're already struggling in family life and in trying to in society and trying to have a family in society was just tough enough. So then they go to family court and they just get ripped on. I think they even just joke about people in the back. They've even recorded judges and people joking about, oh, they see what these stupid people. Then they have judge parties together. This is true. There's a movie called, or a show called Grosse Pointe Garden Society. That's just a few minutes from us. All our judges, most of our judges live in Grosse Pointe, my friends. So, not that this show is really, about reality per se, but my wife and I watched like a half hour of it. We can't watch any more of it. But there was something there. But all these people know each other. They party. All kinds of shit goes on. This is a group of voters of Americans that need help, and they can go Democrat, they could go, I think, independent, they could go Republican. There's a lot of the Trumpers who have been victimized by this, and that created them. I could go on and on, but another group is the people who have been abused by the legal system again, but the war on drugs. The marijuana issue has been such a political football, it's insane. And again, this is a massive group of people, a massive amount of money to be made in revenue for at least medical marijuana and recreational marijuana that keeps getting pushed off. I mean, it's just one of the most moronic things ever. Our country actually promoted people smoking back in the Make America Great Again days, because there were so many families that were destroyed by alcohol. Alcoholism was destroying America, rural America back in the day. A lot of people were making their own alcohol, and that was even worse for them. So the government actually wanted people to grow pot for a while. They wanted people to grow hemp, of course, always for the product. So this is a group of people that we thought Obama was going to help us. He said, quote unquote, before his election, the first time, that medical marijuana makes total sense. And he ended up raiding, literally, you can look this up, he ended up raiding more dispensaries than Bush did. I voted for Obama. I don't think I voted the second election because I just couldn't. I was involved in family court, and he hadn't legalized pot yet. I called him even to tell him that judges were ruling from the bench. I left a message for Obama during his presidency, and probably other messages to other politicians. But again, this group of marijuana advocates, and I've heard people make fun of them, saying, "Oh, it isn't all about marijuana." Like, well, the war on drugs is intense on people. So whatever the hell you want to say and make fun of it and be a sarcastic wench or whatever you are, no. The war on drugs is serious and it hurts people, it hurts families. And this group of voters has been just played around with presidency after presidency, thinking that this president's going to finally at least legalize and medicalize these certain things, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So Obama, his last term, his daughter was caught at Lollapalooza or some, it was Lollapalooza or a Chicago concert, Grant Park. She was caught smoking pot, and you know, did he get dragged into family court for allowing his underage daughter to do this or not? Or did she get in trouble for anything? Get her life dragged through the mud? No, and through Biden and all these, Trump, Biden, the pot is still illegal, you know. So the medical benefits still are not being taken seriously. The billions of dollars in yearly revenue still are not being harnessed. Um, so it's a group of voters that has been severely taken advantage of in our country over the years. And I want politicians, I'm making this video for other voters and people, and I know there's going to be people who don't like this too, but I want some of these people out here, these influencers and these politicians, to understand this and to do something serious, if you want to take advantage of these voters and help them, but get their votes too, follow through with some of this stuff. Um, so not only that, there's a lot more to talk about. Um, I have a little list of things, and I haven't gone live in a while, but I'll probably end up with just pulling up the guitar here for a few minutes and play a little bit of peacefulness. I'm in the woods at our cabin right now in northern Michigan. We live in Detroit, Hamtramck, and go back and forth a lot. Um, we pay school taxes at both cities, and my grandmother, my grandfather, they purchased a cottage about an hour north of where we are now. And actually, Pete Buttigieg just moved in that area recently. So many other people, but that cottage, my grandpa passed at 44 of hypertension, very young, 72. It runs in the family. A reason why my father was always a pot smoker from the time I was a kid, forever, until he passed. Um, but my grandfather passed 72, so my grandmother, had the cottage for many years after him, and she had to pay, um, you know, school tax, and that school tax she would complain about. And they even built a school on part of the farmer's land behind us. Um, she complained about, and I love my grandma. She was a very good person in a lot of ways. But I would argue with her. I'm like, Grandma, you know, this is investing in your community. This makes America great. And she's like, oh, yeah. And it wasn't too long into the 80s that a young man broke into our cottage one time while we weren't there, and he got my step grandfather, Jack Redwine, who's a good guy. He got his gun, and this kid was going through a lot of personal issues, and thankfully he didn't hurt himself, and my grandma actually did go to court, and he did, get convicted. But putting money into your school system is very, very important. And so one of the headlines today from Michiganders was that Trump and Elon and all those people um, cut $40 million in already approved programs. for the for Michigan schools. And this 40 million, the way that they're getting out of it is that they changed the date for applying for the reimbursement. So you pay for the project, and then the government eventually pays you back. So that date got moved back to March, I guess 28th or March 27th. They just found out. They weren't informed. So they listed all the schools that aren't going to get reimbursed now for these projects, and the city that we live in, Hamtramck, is one of them. And Hamtramck, which is right in the middle of Detroit, it's an island inside of Detroit, actually, might as well be Detroit. It's been Democratic forever. Kennedy came to and visited, I mean, Jack Kennedy in the 60s. So now it is the polar opposite. It has been growing over the decades. It isn't suddenly polar opposite. But even our mayor, who was a Democrat, courted and seduced Trump, and voted for Trump, promoted Trump. Our our town mostly voted for Trump, and more than half the people in our town live under the poverty level. I mean, it's pretty intense. So Trump even came to Hamtramck, our town, and these guys, our mayor and various people, threw him a big party. One of the guys who organized it is a convicted pedophile. He molested these students at a school in our town who are handicapped, mentally handicapped. And during the trial, this guy, who was also friends with our Judge Crott, which shouldn't even happen to begin with, but we're such a small town, things seem to just happen. Um, the the kids were trying to testify, and they had a hard time testifying. If you've ever been in court and had to testify, or I saw a guy, Dr. Dragovich, die in front of me and get revived, and I was juror number one. I mean, it's intense stuff. So these kids kind of struggled in testifying against him, and he got out of it. And then, actually, just last year, they went down to Louisiana and got him because new evidence had been found, DNA of him with these kids. So this same guy, and he pled guilty, and he's somehow getting house arrest for this. This same guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he helped organize. He spearheaded the effort to get Trump to Hamtramck pre December, pre him being elected, pre November. He had him here. So I keep thinking I'm in Hamtramck. I'm up north. So this guy now, our mayor, his friend, who helped organize his party, and the mayor helped him too, and all this stuff. The mayor is now ambassador to Kuwait. He's a Democrat who ran as a Democrat in Hamtramck, mayor, but now he's going to run away to be ambassador of Kuwait. Trump gave him that job. I mean, it's the backstabbery. I mean, and again, I did not vote for Trump. I voted for Kamala Harris and Walz, and we still have actually a flag with their names on our porch. And we have other flags, Ukraine, Puerto Rican. We have pride flags to support people in our neighborhood and everybody in general. All of our stuff's been attacked over the years, attacked by masked people. We have cameras. Police don't find these people. They dumped live turtles in an aquarium and next to our shed a couple of weeks ago on 313 day. And I got so many stories. I've been very busy in so many ways. But these are the things that just confound me, that this would happen in Hamtramck, and the mayor would do this. And now look what happened. His own school, his own city, is $40 million in funds. Also, Lincoln Park, Michigan was on that. I went to Lincoln Park schools for a while. A lot of my family's from Lincoln Park. We had radio shops there since the 20s, right next to Detroit. Brownstown, Woodhaven. they're also getting screwed on this. 27 school districts are getting screwed on this $40 million that are just, in reimbursements that just have been taken out from under their feet. Is there going to be a way that somehow they go kiss his ass and get him to make this work for them? Maybe. Maybe they'll be able to salvage this still. But it's just, what about all the other states? And it's just that idea again, like me arguing with grandma, in a productive way when we used to be able to talk with others like that. You have to invest in education. How are you going to make America great again by taking money out of schools? Like, that is just a fucking, I mean, come on, people. This is what a fool believes. It is April Fool's Day, and that's why I'm really trying to make this point here. And in general, the the state of things is very scary in the world, and I just hope that people find a way to be peaceful with one another and think things through, and think about what kind of world you want to give to your kids and your grandkids, and look at the earth and the environment and see what's really happening up here in this cabin we've owned for the last 4 years. We're in the Manistee National Forest. We have seen in the last 2 years oak trees die off like just crazy. I mean, we have an acre of land, and we have 100-year-old oaks or more old here. And just in this time, we have seen like 12 oaks die on our property alone, and the surrounding area, oaks everywhere, be destroyed the last 2 years. We talked to the ranger about it, and they talked with us about it, and they say, yeah, there's nothing you can do, yada, yada, yada. We had wildfire smoke 2 years ago in our state here, and we have wildfires here all the time, but we had Canadian wildfire smoke coming down. That was insane. Into Detroit as well, and I think that really had a huge impact on us. But try to pay attention to what's going on with the earth and not be a living in the clouds because you don't want to pay attention to it. That for some reason there's a guilty thing inside you that says you're not going to pay attention to this. It doesn't work for you. Try to be the more progressive, open-minded person who is aware of things, who's aware of the reality of what someone is saying to you, and not filling you with lies or a sense of pride because you're a white person or this, that, or the other thing. Today our politics, they say we have a real issue with identifying just as a tribe anymore, as white males of a certain society, as Mexican Americans as of a certain society, and all these tribes. We're not thinking in terms of the oneness of our country, the oneness of the group of being humans on this earth. No matter where you live on this earth, we are from this earth. All these little details, are really just minuscule. They're almost asinine, And I do believe in preserving cultures and everything. That's really important. And even in the Bible, it seems like the Bible, when you get into especially stories like, the Tower of Babel, it's about preserving the beauty of all of these different cultures. That's important. But at the same time, I feel we must respect all cultures, Native American cultures, everyone, and it's amazing learning about them. But at the same time, we have to understand that we are one, and that's the only way that we're going to get through all this crap. So happy birthday, April Fool's Day. Thank you for listening to me for this craziness. Now see if I can turn this thing off. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I haven't done this in so long. Okay, I'm going to start a poll here. No, I'm not going to start a poll. All right. Peace, everybody.